everyone. My name is Gary Ezzell. I am a member of the congregation and I have the honor of being your worship leader this morning. Welcome to UUCP's online worship service. In this time when we are physically distant, we believe that it is an act of love and radical inclusion to worship together online in this way. Welcome to our service. Welcome home. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, a special welcome to you. The Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix strives to be a spiritual community for our time, focused on diverse theological perspectives, radical inclusion, and knowing that issues of justice and equity shape everything we do. With a special awareness for those who have been historically marginalized, we welcome all, of every race, class, ethnicity, immigration status, sexual orientation, gender identity, religious background, mental and physical ability and disability. We welcome your whole self, your family, however you define it, into our worship as we build a community of caring, courage, and hope. Our opening words this morning are first from Jane Hirschfield. We cannot let our ideas blind us to our unknowing. And secondly, from Oscar Wilde, the truth is rarely pure and never simple. I invite you to grab a chalice or a candle from your home as we recite together our covenant, while our worship associate, Amy McKlindon, lights our chalice.
Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to share our strength in fellowship. Thus do we covenant. Good morning, everyone. Let me introduce our worship team this morning. I am your worship associate, Amy McKlindon. We have our Director of Children's Ministries, Katie Resendez. Our pianist, Mary Coda. Our Zoom operator today is Justin Walgren. And our chat chaplain is Brad Chapman. And we're joined by our communications and technology coordinator, Becca Briley, as well as our service leader, Gary Ezzell. And our chat is open. You can chat with everyone or just our panelists. The service is automatically captioned for maximum accessibility. As always, we invite you to check in to UUCP on social media with the hashtag UUAnywhere. There is so much to do in our community, and you can find out more in our newsletter, Compass. You can sign up for Compass on our website, which is phoenixuu.org. The Earth Justice Ministry is meeting today at 1:30 p.m. and will be discussing how to support cooling centers for our neighbors who are unhoused. Please also help our partners at the Maryland School to stock their classrooms with needed supplies and art materials as we look ahead to this next school year. See Compass or our website for more information on what supplies are needed and how to contribute. And a reminder that our Navigators program is meeting tomorrow to talk about all things pets. Our offering today is being collected virtually, just like our service. We ask you to please be generous in your giving to support the mission of our beloved community. You can text UUCP to 73256. You can donate through our website, or you can send in a check. And just a reminder, if you haven't sent in your pledge for the next fiscal year, please do so as soon as you can. You'll find that link in the chat as well. For all that you give to our congregation, we are so very grateful.
Good morning, UUCP. Our opening hymn will be Love Will Guide Us, which ties into the theme of today's service about choosing our words carefully. So love will guide us to choose the best words that we can.
Good morning. I'm Katie Resendez, and I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here at UUC Phoenix. Today, I want to tell you a story about John Sr., John, and Jonathan. John Sr. Hauser was a very well-respected man. You see, he had made a name for himself building houses. Big, beautiful houses out of brick, strong, sturdy houses that looked like they would last forever and were fit for royalty. Well, as far as royalty went in their small town. And to be honest, John Hauser Sr. was pretty close to royal in their town. His wealth made him stand out among others. He made sure that his wife always had the finest clothes, was always outfitted the best. Their family threw the best parties and had the nicest silverware. Did you know that having nice silverware is important? Someone told me that once. Anyway, John Hauser Sr. filled his life with beautiful, nice, fancy things. They had a room in their house that was just for fancy furniture. You weren't really allowed to sit there unless someone came over, and not like your friend, but like the mayor. The mayor got to sit in that room, not really anyone else. They lived their life. They were very well respected, and they had a son, John. John Hauser also built houses, but he was opulent in a different way. We might say entitled. He built himself tons of houses, and they were all in the newest fashion. They had these sloped roofs, very mod, track lighting overhead, so fancy, so nice, crisp white lines. He had tons of houses for himself, and every once in a while, because of his father's wealth, he would help out on a build project here or offer to design something for a neighbor there. But for the most part, he traveled from his beautiful house to the next, and everyone knew that those were the Hauser houses. As it would happen, John Hauser had a son as well and named him Jonathan Hauser. And I call each of these men by different names, but we know they all went by John, John, and John. And the youngest, Jonathan, struggled. As a kid, he loved to do all sorts of things. He loved to go camping. He was really good at skateboarding. He liked to wrestle and loved to read. He would lose himself in books for hours and hours. He would listen to music all the time. He had tons of friends, but he struggled because building stuff was hard, and building brick houses seemed weird. The town already had so many big brick houses, and half of them were owned by his family. That was uncomfortable. John did experiment a little bit, built a few tents, a few lean-tos, even a tiny house on wheels. But eventually, he ended up just getting a job at a community center. He helped coach basketball, made sure everyone had their lunches when they need them, made sure the room was all set up. But it didn't feel good to him, and it didn't feel comfortable. Because when people would walk in to the community center, he would say, "Hi, I'm John Hauser." And he always felt bad because he didn't build big, beautiful houses like the John Hauser that he knew they were thinking about. And this sat with him, and it stuck, and it felt tacky and icky and spiny and pokey every time he said his name. So one evening, after most of his work was done, he sat at the big table in the community center, writing and grumbling and throwing things away. And he had taken the nameplate off his desk, and he stomped around. He was so frustrated, and he was almost at tears when one of the kids came in. And this little kid was about 8 years old and said, "What's wrong? Why are you upset? Can I help?" And John thought, wow, this little kid knows to help, knows to offer help. And looked at the kid and said, "How did you know I was frustrated?" "Well, of course you're frustrated. There's paper all over the floor. You're stomping and huffing. I know you're frustrated. And you taught me when someone is frustrated to offer them help." John smiled at that. He said, "Well, I do need some help. You see, I'm trying to think of a new name. I'm going to change my name." "Why would you change your name, Mr. Hauser?" "Well, Mr. Hauser is my grandfather and my father, and they build houses. I don't build houses. I'm certainly no John Hauser. I didn't know that you had to do what your last name said. My last name is Frogger. Oh, no. I don't mean that I have to build houses because my name is Hauser. I have to build houses because John Hauser is my name. And that's my family legacy. That's what that name has always meant for years and years and years in this town. And that little 8-year-old looked at Jonathan and said, no, you can't change your name because you know what? You're the only John Hauser I've ever known. And if you change your name, then all I'll know is those other ones, and I'll have to go find out about them. And from what you said, that doesn't sound great. And so Jonathan Hauser decided to stay Jonathan Hauser. But Jonathan Hauser made sure to define exactly what it meant to be John Hauser. And he did build houses. He built a community center that housed a karate school, a choir, a free lunch program. It housed amazing memories for generations and generations of kids. Because whether or not the name meant something before, he got to choose what it meant now. And he had the power to choose and teach what it would name for generations to come. Our names are powerful and our words are powerful. And you know that you are powerful and you are so very loved.
Today's centering is a Chopin nocturne in G minor, and nocturne means, you can guess, nocturnal.
It is the time when we share the joys and sorrows of our community. Being together, it is good to share, to support each other, and to connect. I invite you to please write any joys or sorrows or what you would like our community to know about in the chat. If you can please put your name at the beginning so I can properly acknowledge it, that would be wonderful. And if you want it to be private only to me and the panelists and not to be shared please put the word private at the beginning and send it to just panelists so that we can hold it in our hearts. While you are entering your joys and sorrows, let me mention a few in our community. Reverend Christine wanted you all to know that Judith Brewer has moved to hospice care. She has been sick since 2018 with metastatic melanoma. In the days or weeks that she has remaining, her family is welcoming any kind of support by UUCP friends who know and love Judith, including cards, meals for the family, or visits. If you'd like to learn more, please contact Victoria Myers at unicare@phoenixuu.org. And a joy from Reverend Christine and Karen. They are delighted to share that their son Kyle and his girlfriend Michelle are engaged to be married next summer. Reverend Christine and Karen share that they are so excited to have Michelle as a member of their family. Congratulations and much happiness to all of you. And now for the joys and sorrows from our community members. I see we're getting a lot of comments to Mary, welcoming back, and so happy to have you here with us live and enjoying your beautiful music this morning. I'll give you all a moment to enter anything else you'd like to share with our community in the chat. Sarah Moore shares a joy. My very good friend Samantha gave birth to her first child on Friday. I look forward to soon meeting August Young Kai Chen. So wonderful. Congratulations, Sarah, to you and your friend. Latanya Richardson shares a joy to be visiting Phoenix and Scottsdale this week. It's been hot, but lovely. Yes, it has indeed been quite hot. And Latanya, we're so happy to have you here with us this morning. And I know there are many joys and sorrows that we all hold close to our hearts. And so we hold all of those with us this morning as well as we move into a time of meditation and prayer. I invite you to center yourselves, to get settled into your seat, put your feet on the floor if you wish, to ground yourself, and I invite you just to take a few deep breaths with me. Amen. Blessed be, and Ashe.
This piece is Debussy's first arabesque.
When I moved to Phoenix, I was so eager to find my people here, but also at a complete loss as to how to do that as an adult. I had seen friends move to new places who built their community through their churches, but I figured that was off the table for me. I didn't consider myself to be a religious person, let alone a church person. I wasn't going to make friends in a weekly Bible study because I don't read the Bible. Once I got here, however, I remembered my mom telling me about a different kind of church she went to when she was younger, a UU fellowship. And I even found some quiz online that told me I was supposed to be a UU. So I thought I would check it out. And I'm here before you today, almost 5 years into being a member at UUCP. And I found my people here. And I've also found out along the way that I am, in fact, a church person. And I did end up forming close friendships with people I met through the small group ministry program, although granted, we weren't reading the Bible together. My perception of the word church then was very different from my perception of it now, but I'll admit that I still struggle with how to use that word, particularly outside of UUCP. I find myself having to add caveats or explanations. Christian friends and coworkers have incorrectly assumed that I'm a devout Christian, while atheist and non-religious friends have gotten pretty confused, and I think in some instances they've worried that I've joined a cult. I don't have a solution to this other than trying to perfect my elevator speech on UUism. And I will say that my pride in and deep connection to this community has made me much more vocal in using the word church. I believe there's room to expand our and the world's perceptions of what church means, and I'm eager to hear Gary's reflections on this today and have continued conversations with all of you during coffee hour.
Another UUCP classic, Spirit of Life. Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Thank you.
I want to talk today about words that give me the willies. These are words that we use all the time, but that I am never quite comfortable with. The prime example is the word worship. Now, I am a worship associate here at UUCP, and today I am the worship leader. And what we do here together, we call a worship service. But honestly, that word has bothered me for the 20 plus years that I have been here. Clearly, I have accommodated to it, but I have had to work at it. Now, before digging into that, I want to acknowledge straight out that I am going to be speaking from my own experience and way of looking at the world. And so I approach this topic with a sense of humility. I don't expect that all of us here see things the way I do, of course not. I just hope that my experience is sufficiently common to be useful. Some background. I grew up in the Midwest in a family that had been Presbyterian for some generations, and we took our particular variant of Protestant Christianity fairly seriously. My dad was an elder in the church. I went through confirmation class when I was 13 and joined the church after that. I tended to believe what I was told. We said the Apostles' Creed every week. Now, my doubts about the claims of Christianity grew as I did. And so I was agnostic by the time I entered college and a science curriculum. Later, after college, I spent 2 years in the Peace Corps, living in Malaysia, a multi-ethnic country with Muslims and Hindus and Confucians and very few Christians. So by the time I was 25, I had seen worship manifested in many, many ways. Now, I consider myself a humanist and still agnostic and not atheist, because to me to be atheist is to assert a certainty that I'm not quite willing to claim. Now, the point of that idiosyncratic history is that many words have religious connotations for me that are deeply wired in my neurons. Connotations primarily from my Christian upbringing, and connotations that I really don't particularly care for nowadays. It's a form of bias, not unlike the racial and gender bias that I also grew up with and have been trying to dispel. Okay, so how have I come to terms with the word worship? As a verb, it takes an object. You worship something. What then? A deity? Deities? Well, that doesn't work for me. So go back to the origin. The word comes from an old English word meaning worthiness, acknowledgement of worth. For me, to worship is to pay attention to that which is most worthy, that which is most worthy of your attention and devotion. You have to decide what that is. As Bob Dylan wrote, you got to serve somebody. What is it you are serving? As a UU, the reason I come to something called a worship service is to ask myself that question and to be challenged to ask myself that question and then to be challenged, so what are you going to do about it? It's hard to do that work by myself. By coming to the service, I am coming into the presence of others who can help me answer those questions. The notion of that which is most worthy also helps me with the words spiritual and spirituality, words I hear in a lot of contexts. Now, for me, the word spirit carries the connotation of soul, something separate from the body and potentially persistent beyond the life of the body. And that connotation discomforts me. However, spirit comes from the word for breath, which is fundamental to life. So I can think of a spiritual practice as one that helps a person strip away the distractions and minutiae and connect to life's fundamentals. To me, to be spiritual is to engage with the core of what is most fundamental to life. Nevertheless, spirit has broader meanings that I try to be open to. When we sing, Spirit of Life, Come Unto Me, as we just did, there's a sense of something ineffable that I can't put neatly into a materialistic box. There is a unity and wonder to nature, and to the mystery of being alive and being aware of it. And these things, I think, are better elicited by music and poetry than certainly my rationalizations. I try not to be too tempted by the comfort of certainty. Might there be a spirit of life that is more than a poetic metaphor? Maybe. In 1927, J.B.S. Haldane wrote, "Now, my own suspicion is that the universe is queerer than we suppose. And not only that, but queerer than we can suppose." Now, that was before the discovery of black holes, dark energy, dark matter, quantum entanglement, and all kinds of weird things. And also before the subsequent evolution of the word queer, which is another example of words having multiple meanings and evolving meanings. Best to be flexible. Two more words that have given me pause: faith and religion. I saw something from the UU minister, Gielan Gingrich, that helped me with those. He writes, "Faith is not a product of reason or knowledge or evidence or even of experience, although each of these plays an important role. Faith is a leap of the moral imagination. Faith looks at what is and believes in what might be. Religion is the collection of external forms that we use: songs, symbols, stories, rituals, obligations, sacred spaces, to carry our faith along from day to day and generation to generation." This notion of religion being a collective activity is really helpful to me. I've come to consider myself as a religious humanist, which may sound self-contradictory if you think of religion as necessarily implying belief in a deity. But consider this description from all-knowing Wikipedia. Religious humanism is an integration of humanist ethical philosophy with congregational rites and community activity. Well, I'm down with that. Congregational rites and community activity. Songs, symbols, stories, rituals, obligations, sacred spaces. These things that carry our faith along from day to day, person to person, and generation to generation. With that understanding, I can consider myself a religious person. Longtime member Roy Miller conducts a discussion group about great UU sermons, and he recently highlighted one from 2009 by our previous minister, Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. Quoting a paragraph from that, "Over the past generation, as Christian fundamentalism rose in power and public influence, our congregations became safe havens in which we too often circled the horses and drew inward, enjoying the religious liberalism we found within the congregation, but guarding it jealously, even fearfully. In response to the growing influence of religious conservatism in public life, we pulled in the opposite direction, becoming wary of associating ourselves in any way with religion." One of our ministers, she writes, shared with me how just a few months ago, a member of her congregation asked her, "Now, you're not one of those people who thinks Unitarian Universalism is a religion, do you?" "Indeed I am," that minister proudly declared. So, is what we share a religion? How do you feel about that word? One etymology of the word religion takes us back to the Latin re, meaning again, and legare, meaning to bind. In a word, or in a metaphor, to bind back again that which had been separated. We could do with more binding and less separation. Another word that UUCP has a definite history with is church. In 1947, our founders incorporated as the first Unitarian Church of Phoenix. We later became the first Unitarian Universalist Church of Phoenix. And then in 1997, we voted to name the congregation the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Phoenix. At least in part because several members from non-Christian backgrounds questioned the use of the word church in our name. When I arrived in 1999, there was a consistent, I would say almost strident, emphasis on using congregation instead of church. That has diminished over time, at least partially because church is one syllable and easier to say. But still, I think the concern is valid. Now, church comes easily to me because that's how I grew up. But a friend here from a Jewish background once asked me how I would feel if people routinely referred to going to temple. Ah, I got it. That was a useful invitation to stand in another's shoes. It's a matter of inclusivity, which is a word that now has become quite prominent in our lexicon. So my habit is to use congregation still, but I don't see us demanding its use the way we did 20 years ago. Thank goodness we can cut each other some slack. There are a number of other words we could talk about, and I hope to have a discussion group in the fall on this topic. For example, what does it mean and what does it take for something to be holy? In coffee hour today, I suggest you might talk about worship, religion, and such words and see what thoughts people have. But to stir the pot a bit more, I'd like to turn from words we use to words we seldom, if ever, use, because they collectively make us very uncomfortable. Here's the main one. Brace yourself. Sin. I don't have a good handle on that one. Although we talk a lot about injustice and oppression, appropriately so, I don't think I've ever heard them described here as being sins, or that they're the consequence of humanity's sinful nature. That really goes against our universalist heritage. And maybe it wouldn't be helpful. Maybe if we are looking for reasons for bad behavior, it's enough to focus on psychology to explain why people do what they do, and also to think about how to have them change the way they act. And maybe that word sin is too much like cholla cactus for many of us. There's just no way to get close without getting hurt. But it bothers me that we never set aside time, either in our weekly service or during the year, to acknowledge the times that we fall short, when either by acts of omission or commission, we individually have failed to be who we want to be. We don't have to call them sins or to submerge in guilt, but it would be healthy to face them. How would you feel about having an invitation each week to silently reflect on our own shortcomings? There's a question for discussion. Personally, I at least would like us to see something annually, an equivalent to the Jewish Day of Atonement. How can we improve the world if we don't improve ourselves? There is a poem by Marge Piercy called Many, Many Loves that ends with these lines. Some, the luckiest, can love themselves without narcissism, just saying, well, I am this. I could do better now, and probably I will. Here's a triad of words we seldom hear but may belong in our UU vocabulary. Confession, forgiveness, and grace. Grace is forgiveness given unearned. Grace is what we need to show each other. We come here from many different backgrounds, carrying different burdens. Sometimes we will make each other uncomfortable. We should, otherwise we're not learning. The discomfort is an opportunity. I heard a good phrase last month at General Assembly. Be curious, not furious. I have focused today on words from my Christian background, but there are certainly words and phrases from contemporary UU culture that may make some of us uncomfortable. I confess my first reaction to the suggestion that I specify my preferred pronouns was, what? Why? We learn. Another phrase I learned from General Assembly. Some religions are like a stone, others like a river. Let's be a river, rapids and all. We started talking about worship. So what do we do together in this UUCP worship service? How are we to be a spiritual community for our time? I have come to think of it this way. We come together to attend to those things most worthy of our attention, to struggle with difficult times and difficult words, to support each other with grace and love, and to try to level up and to experience the holy. May it be so. Our final music comes from the artist Carrie Newcomer.
This is called Holy as the Day is Spent. It's about the beauty in the small moment, the sacredness, the holiness found in the smallest of things, the daily, the common, the ordinary, the extraordinary, the miraculous that we encounter every day. Holy is the dish and drain, the soap and sink and the cup and plate, and the warm wool socks and the cold white tile, shower heads and good dry towels, and frying eggs sound like psalms, with bits of salt measured in my palm, and it's all a part of a sacrament, as holy as a day is spent. Holy is the busy street and the cars that boom with a passionate beat, and the checkout girl counting change, the hands that shook my hands today, and the geese fly overhead, spread their wings like their parents did. Blessed be the dog who runs in her sleep to chase some wild and elusive thing. Holy is the familiar room and the quiet moments in the afternoon, and folding sheets like folding hands, to pray as only laundry can. I'm letting go of all my fear, like autumn leaves made of earth and air. But the summer came and the summer went, as holy as a day is spent. Holy is the place I stand to give whatever small good I can, and the empty page and the open book, redemption everywhere I look. Unknowingly we slow our pace, in the shade of unexpected grace, and with grateful smiles and sad lament, as holy as a day is spent, and morning light sings providence, as holy as a day is spent.
Before closing words, we like to invite you to coffee hour after the service. The link is in the chat and will be on the final slide. Visitors, we hope you'll join us. We are a friendly bunch. And a reminder, please continue to check on each other. Our closing words come from the Reverend Dr. Sophia Bentoncourt. No matter the words, at our core is an ongoing invitation to be more than we would otherwise be, and to live our lives in service to that greater good that we teach about. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe. Go in peace. Go in love.